take a look at last night's homework. I'm going to walk you through this. I know I only asked you to do the bottom part of this worksheet, but I'm going to walk you through the top part so that I can give explanations. I'm not there today to be able to ask questions, so it's very important that you listen to this video and understand why you got problems wrong if you did get wrong. And then when you do the IXL lesson that I have assigned, you'll understand how to do it, and you can always refer back to this video or your notes. Okay, so from your notes, remember equivalent fractions. You can create them. They're equivalent, so they're equal value. They just look different. And there's two ways to create an equivalent fraction. That's either by multiplying the numerator and the denominator or dividing the numerator and denominator. So we're going to look at number 1. So the fraction 2/4, okay? We can do either one, okay? In this example, we're multiplying the numerator and denominator to create the equivalent fraction of 4/8, or you could divide it because they both have the factor of 2 in common. So you could divide 2 into 2, and that's 1, and then 2 divided into 4 would be 2, and that would be in its simplest form. Okay, so let's look at number 6. Now on this one we divided because 6 and 10, when we factor those, remember what factoring is. Whatever you can multiply together to create that number, those numbers are the factors. So 6 and 10 have 2 in common. Okay, 2 is a factor of both of them. So if we divide the numerator and denominator by 2, we get our simplest equivalent fraction, which is 3/5. Okay, let's look at number 3. This one's a good example of they don't have anything in common. You can make 4 smaller by 2 if you divided it by 2, but if you tried to divide 9 by 2, you would not get a nice round number. Or vice versa, you could try to divide 4 by 3, but it wouldn't give you a nice round number. So in this case, when they don't have factors in common, you multiply. So we multiply this by 2, and it creates the equivalent fraction of 8/18. Okay? And number 4. This one has the common factor of 24. They both have 24 in common. So you're going to divide 24, the numerator by 24, the denominator by 24, and that creates the simplest fraction of 1/2. So that's in its simplest form. You could have divided by 2 if you wanted to. That would have been fine as well. They both are divisible by 2, and that would have created an equivalent fraction. I just created the simplest one. Okay. Number 5. Explain why the half of an apple is not equivalent to 4/8 of a pizza. Well, if you reduce this or created an equivalent fraction, it would actually be 1/2, right? But if you look at what you're trying to compare, is an apple bigger than pizza, the same size as a pizza? And the answer is no, because they're not the same size. So you have to keep that in mind when you're using fractions. What you're making a fraction out of has to be equivalent or the same size. A pizza is bigger than an apple, so if you have half of an apple and half of a pizza, which one would you rather have? Okay. And on number 6, it says, why wouldn't you use division to find the equivalent fraction for 7/15? Well, 7's already a prime number, so if you tried to divide it by 2, it would not be a nice even number. So and another reason is you would not use division is because 7 and 15 do not have any common factors, so you can't divide them by anything that they have in common. So if you created an equivalent fraction of 7/15, it would need to be by multiplication. Okay, so let's go down here to some independent practice. And these just told you basically what to do. With 3/12, you can either multiply it to create 6/24, or they both have a common factor of 3. 3 can go into itself 1 time, and 3 can also go into 12 4 times. So you can do both with these to create equivalent fractions. This one right here is in its simplest form. You cannot reduce it any further. Same thing with this one, 6/12. We divided it because they have they have something in common, okay? They have 18, they have, well, but this was supposed to be multiplication, I think is what they meant to put there. So this was 1836, so I multiplied it by 3 first, and then I divided it by 6 here, which is 1/2. That's in its smallest form. This one, if you divided it by 3, that would be 2/4, which you could divide again, which would be 1/2. So if you actually divided this one, it would be 2/4. Number 9, this one, they multiplied it first, 10/35. They multiplied it by 2, so that'd be 20/70. Okay, or you could divide them by 5. They both have 5s in common. There is a common factor for both of them. So if we did that, it would reduce it to its simplest form of 2/7. Okay, now let's actually look at the problems I had you do. Okay, so this one, I chose to divide it because 6 and 9 have a common factor of 3. So it reduces it to its smallest form. If you chose to multiply it, that's fine. If you multiplied it by 2, that would be 12/18, I believe. So, but I chose to divide it because they have the common factor of 3. Number 11. This one is in its smallest form. They don't have a common factor together. 5 and 7 do not have a common factor. So we had to multiply 5/7 by 2. Whatever you multiply the top, you do the bottom. So we created an equivalent fraction of 10/14. Okay, and 9/10 as well. 9 does not have any factors in common with 10. Okay, when you factor these guys out, 9/10, they don't have a common factor. So, and that's the case where you have to multiply. So I multiplied both of these by 2, which created the equivalent fraction of 18/20. Number 13. These both had a common factor of 8. So I divided the 32/40 by 8 on both the top and the bottom, and I created the simplest equivalent fraction of 4/5. Number 14, 28/36. They both have 4 in common. So I decided to divide these numbers by 4 to create the simplest equivalent fraction of 7/9. Number 15, this one was fun. You can't divide that down any further. They don't really have anything in common. 1 and 1,000 they do not have anything in common other than themselves. So I just chose to multiply by 2, the top and the bottom. So I created the equivalent fraction of 2 2/1000. Okay, number 16, 3 and 11. They do not have a common factor. They have nothing in common, so I chose to multiply them by 2 to create the equivalent fraction of 6/20. Okay, and number 17. I saw that they have a common factor of 7. So I chose to divide both the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator, by 7, and I created a equivalent fraction of 2/3 in its simplest form. And number 18, last one. I saw that these had a common factor when I factored them out of 9. So I used 9 to divide both the top and the bottom, numerator and denominator, by 9, and I created an equivalent fraction of 3/4. And that again is in its simplest form. Okay, you're going to be doing an IXL lesson that is similar to this. So make sure you're using this video and the notes that you've taken this week so far. All right, thank you guys.